Hey everybody, Graham and I got to see Mother last night, and that is what we are going to be discussing today. And this was a movie that going into, I was braced for. I had heard that it was horrifying, that it was extremely controversial. People are calling it one of the most divisive films of all time. And I was a little worried going into this movie. I didn't quite know what to expect. I didn't know where it was going. I hadn't watched any reviews. I had just seen that 2-minute trailer that both you and I watched beforehand.
Yep.
And how did you feel kind of going into this? How did you prepare, and how did you feel coming out? Just as far as...
as you were saying, we basically went in blind. We watched the trailer. We knew who directed it, and that was it. We knew it had a stellar cast. And anyway, so we went in kind of blind, and... I know it disturbed you a lot more than it disturbed me.
I want to talk about it.
But, yeah, so we haven't been allowed to talk about it since, which has been killing me. Absolutely killing me.
We did not break that rule, but we wanted. I had to talk to someone after this movie, and I couldn't talk to Graham.
So now we got to get started. I got a bunch of questions. So
before we start getting into this, so we got to preface this just a tad. For those of you who don't know, this is a movie by Darren Aronofsky, and he directed Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream. I really liked Black Swan. I don't really know what to think about Requiem for a Dream, but this is a movie that has a lot of inspiration from some huge producers. We got a lot of Polanski in this movie. This is very inspired by Rosemary's Baby, the classic from the 50s. There's a lot of David Lynch in this. The just uncomfortable dread of every scene. I felt a ton of that. And even Stanley Kubrick. I felt a lot of it in the kind of the sexual themes, the lack of music, and the cinematography. But it still felt like a pretty organic movie to me. This is a movie, I was talking to someone about it afterwards. I didn't even know what to compare it to. Because I've never seen a movie like this.
I don't think
before.
you can compare it to. So you can say other mind benders or whatever.
Yeah.
But
you're putting
what happened in
category.
this one is I've always been able to follow Inception, Interstellar, The Prestige, Memento. The list goes on and on about mind bending movies, and I still am trying to figure out what happened in this movie. A day later.
I think we're going to be figuring it out as we talk about it.
So what helps me figure things out is discussing it, and we haven't been able to discuss it, ergo I haven't figured it out. But I have a bazillion different questions.
This is completely...
I've got a ton of different ideas on what happened, but I'm trying to figure out the meaning of it.
This is going to be spoiler filled. This is going to be a discussion. This is going to be a movie that I think a lot of people are going to want to discuss.
Yeah.
It sticks in your mind. It has been... I probably haven't been not thinking about it for a minute since we saw it. So let's get right into it. What did you think, first of all, just about, before we talk about all these questions, the acting in this movie?
Hold on, no. We're gonna tackle this.
We're gonna tackle it head on.
All
right.
What is this movie about? That's what we're about to talk about.
Well, I've got some answers. I think.
Drop them on me.
Okay, I'm just gonna go right into it. So I think there's a lot of biblical allegories in this movie, and I think Darren Aronofsky likes to kind of twist some biblical narratives as he did with Noah, which is a movie I was not a fan of. You see when those two brothers come into the house and start fighting. I thought that was a lot of Cain and Abel. When those people keep sitting on that sink and the house starts flooding in, I got the flood. When they start worshiping him and carrying things, I got a little bit of Tower of Babel. And ultimately what I think this film is about, I think it's about the evil of extreme narcissism. And I really feel pretty strongly about that, and I want to discuss it because I think this is a movie about someone who has the desire to be worshipped. I think Javier Bardem, is that his name?
Yeah.
I think he plays an immortal pagan deity in this movie. I think he is an immortal pagan god, and I think he is using Jennifer Lawrence as a mantelpiece, and he is driven by this just need to be worshipped. He's not driven by love in any way. He doesn't even love Lawrence. He's using every ounce of worship that he can get to drive his soul and purpose. And right when we get into this, I want to talk about something that I think is part of the mind-bender aspect of this movie. I think Lawrence is girl number 2. So,
if not girl number
5.
Anything else. Yeah, it could be anywhere in the lineup.
Do you want to know why I think it's girl number 2?
Why?
He's only written one book. So we know that much. He's only had one novel so far. The house burned down originally.
Yeah.
And then they found that gem. So my question for you is, did Lawrence come to life in that first scene? And is that why she's in a dream the entire movie? To me, she was like deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
She didn't. It was like a dream where you're running and you can't get anywhere. That was her the entire movie. I thought she did an exceptional job of portraying that. It's like she could not do anything. She couldn't contain the situation. They didn't talk about the past or how they met. I think she came to life in that first scene. I think he birthed her through his immortal powers. And that was just like the girl at the end of the movie when she says, "Hey, baby," in the morning. I think that was Lawrence. What about you? Do you think she had a past, or do you think that she was just...
So I think that's really very, very interesting. That's a whole, allegory type thing. Yeah, I think, okay, so at the beginning of the movie, we see the very first opening shot is this, like, girl on fire,
I don't think it's Lawrence.
It's not Jennifer Lawrence, okay?
Did you notice that when you were watching it the first time?
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah.
So Jennifer Lawrence is not the first girl, and then you wake up, Jennifer Lawrence is there for the entirety of the movie, and then at the end, it's also not her. So someone else replaces her.
Exactly.
Okay, so
completely agree.
This honestly could be an endless loop. If it weren't for your theory about I
think it's happened once.
The first novel or whatever, then it just like that. I think that resonates. Like that makes sense in my mind. What you said about the first novel. However, this almost has like a Groundhog Day kind of a feel to it, where this is
very
like an endless,
messed up Groundhog Day.
Loop. But you have no idea how the loop started.
Yeah,
and
great
so you
movie
wonder
too.
Why it keeps happening and why. And I think Javier Bardem tries to explain why he keeps wanting it to happen at the end, while Jennifer Lawrence is like third-degree burns, like corpse, before he literally rips her heart out.
How did he explain that at the end?
That's what I'm trying to remember.
That's the only part I'm
very, very poetic. So she's like...
He is a poet.
I know. So everything he says throughout the movie is like extremely poetic, but...
I thought he killed this role.
I thought... Like, good thing?
I thought he absolutely portrayed this to the most disturbing possible element that he could have. I completely bought his character the entire time. The way he handles Lawrence, and he's always easing her into the situation, and he's just saying... people start showing up. He's like, we gotta give a home to them. No, they're just taking stuff. It's just things. Who cares if they burn the house? Who cares if they kill the baby? The way he just eased her into every situation until this got to be a nightmare. I thought
she broke. Yeah.
I thought his acting was phenomenal. I thought it was absolutely gripping and disturbing.
Yeah, I think that I felt like. I want to keep going on plot.
We're going to keep going on plot. Yeah.
I think he did a great job. I think Jennifer Lawrence did way better in my mind.
Yes.
Jennifer Lawrence.
I was going to talk about that.
Flawless performance. But what my thing is that there's so many things that are thrown at you that don't necessarily relate to the storyline. I think that they're there to maybe disturb you and maybe shake you up a little bit and keep you on the edge of your seat, but have no relevance. And that's what I'm trying to really piece together is the director just toying with us, or
I think he is a little bit. And
and a primetime example of that is the thing in the toilet. Jennifer Lawrence walks in the bathroom.
There's no reason behind it.
Bloody Kleenex, and she throws it away, throws it in the toilet. Toilet starts overflowing. She plungers it. And then this weird, like...
You know what I think about this scene?
Piece of meat with two rat tails coming out of it, like, comes out, and then she, like, touches it with the plunger, and it, like, squirts blood and then goes down the drain.
Well, I think
No idea what that means, no idea what that is. Totally weirded out by it.
I think
no significance.
I think it ties in a little bit more than you think. I think that Jennifer Lawrence... I know Jennifer Lawrence keeps putting her eyes to the wall in this movie, and you see the heartbeat. And ultimately what we learn, if you've seen this movie, is that Lawrence is giving life to this house. When she starts to feel the baby inside of her move, or she starts to get anxious, you see the house start to turn black. Mm-hmm. She's controlling the heartbeat of the house. She is the heartbeat of the house. She's the life of the house. When she dies at the end, the house burns down.
She is the house. She never leaves the house the entire movie. She only goes to the patio.
And I don't think, because of I don't think she's ever been anywhere other than the house. I think she was birthed in the house.
Her entirety of her life is in the house. And I can't tell Javier Bardem is kind of like controlling that. I think that he is because he
Absolutely.
won't let her leave.
Well, this is a question
Whenever
I
she
had,
tries to
and I
leave.
want to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah.
So I think Javier Bardem, as I already said, I think he's a pagan deity in this movie. I think he is someone who needs extreme worship and is driven so much. He loves it when the first guests, which are kind of a bluff in the movie, come into the house. It doesn't go anywhere necessarily, but he thrives off their interest into him. They have that picture in their suitcase, and everyone who has the picture, and this is also where I want to go with this, is a part of a cult.
Yeah.
I think we definitely have an occult thing going on. Yeah,
definitely a cult starts.
Definitely.
We don't really understand why or how, but it starts.
I don't think it matters why or how, and I was thinking about this after the movie. I was like, I kind of want to know what his book was about. But his book isn't the point. The point is what his book is doing, and his point is to drive him to be worshipped and to start this insane, almost just debaucherous worship and lifestyle that's influenced by his poems. It forms a cult.
It's just he encourages just greed and selfishness.
Yes, and this is
all these things. It's like the weirdest.
Yeah, it's.
thing.
I mean, his poems lead to executions, sacrifices.
I'm still trying to figure out, dude. Okay, so the first 3/4 of the movie made sense. Okay,
You got it.
the last 1/4 of the movie gets way out of hand very fast, and you're trying to piece it together. So while Jennifer Lawrence is giving birth, there are like riots happening,
Yeah.
and people are getting, almost like a genocide. Kristen Wiig is just blowing people's brains out left and right,
Yeah.
and then tries to kill Jennifer Lawrence for whatever reason.
She kills it in those first scenes in the movie.
And then, this is all happening while Jennifer Lawrence is giving birth. She's going through the house, and then there's like people in cages. And then all the police are there, and they all die. And then, like, the National Guard comes in, they all die. Like, grenades and stuff
Yeah.
going off. And then, somebody tries to help Jennifer Lawrence. He gets his brains blown out. And then this is all happening while she gives birth. And
So
I'm still trying to figure out, like, why were there cages of people there? And, I don't fully understand like where those cages came from, because
They weren't there before.
Yeah, exactly. Like it would have made sense to me had they not been cages, had they been locked in a room, or something like that. But it's like, why are there barbed wire cages inside of the house? Clearly they didn't exist there before this, and no one in this time span could have brought in these cages.
No one
I don't know why I'm holed up on the cages, but
I mean,
but
there were a lot of
basically-
things brought in there, though.
yeah, so throughout this movie is like peppered with like a hint of like maybe this girl has magic powers, kind of a thing. Like she throws the cigarette lighter through the wall, and then
I think he's got magic powers.
and then when she finally loses her mind after the cult eats her baby, okay?
Gosh,
after they sacrifice and eat
too
her
much.
child, she loses her mind, kills like 5 people with a piece of broken glass, and then like starts screaming and the ground breaks apart. So clearly she has some power. That's what I like.
Well-
She's pointed it out twice.
No. Well, I think it goes back to what we were saying, and I think I stick to the point. I think she gives life to this house. I think Bardem is a pagan deity, and I think he's brought her to life. And she's not an immortal being, but she is a mystical being that he's brought, and she controls this house. So when she's getting annihilated at the end, and the house starts breaking apart, it's because she's the life of the house.
So what I'm trying to figure out with the whole, and we'll figure this out.
Let's talk about the 10
Groundhog-
minutes where things
I
go
was going to talk
insane.
about the Groundhog Day thing, dude. Where Javier Bardem is like upset that the crystal has broken.
Yeah.
When Ed Harris drops it or whatever.
Yeah.
Why is he so upset? And does this happen every time that he brings a girl to life? That this crystal breaks, and then after that, everything starts falling apart? Or, I don't fully understand the significance of the crystal. I understand that crystal is her heart.
It's her heart, yeah.
I understand that it is every girl's heart that he's ever had.
Yeah.
And it also basically lets this time frame start over again, or this whole sequence start over again, regardless of if Ed Harris is there or whatever.
Well, we got to talk about something to figure out the significance of that, and if it breaks every time. Did he know that this was going to play out the way it
That's
played
what
out?
I'm saying. I think he's aware of it in his little speech at the end when she's like, who even are you? You know, how did you survive my suicide bombing attempt?
Yeah.
Or suicide, arson attempt. And he's like, I am I and you are you. That's literally what he says.
He's immortal.
And then, apparently, and I mean, we figured that out for the first time, and then I'm still trying to piece that together, man. That conversation where he's like,
and it also
if life were complete, then I wouldn't have the desire to create, and he just has this desire to create, so that's why he keeps going through all of this.
Yeah, and I think you know why he has the desire to create, and why he says I am I and you are you. I think it goes back to the entire narcissistic thing. I think he's saying I am me. I am meant to be worshipped. You are a slave to my desires. You are a mental piece to bring a baby to be sacrificed for my will, for my worship, and for my cult. And I think it drives with the theme of the movie. I think that it's that extreme narcissism that we see in the Old Testament of people sacrificing children. We have pagan, civilizations that are wiped out in the Old Testament, and this kind of felt like that to me, and bringing it into a more disturbing way that we're actually witnessing, unfortunately. But so I think that I can't figure out the scene where the thing drops and hits the floor and he goes bananas and crushes it.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, like the significance of the crystal breaking, because I was thinking like, the whole world or the house will immediately revert back to its burned state or something, but it didn't.
Well, I also want to, before we get into that, there's something when we were talking about that scene. How is this covered up? So we think this has happened before. You think it's maybe happened multiple times. Cops are involved, National Guard's involved, people get annihilated, the bridesmaid girl starts taking hostages and killing people that are the resistance, basically. Do you think this gets covered up? And this is the way I'm rationalizing it. I think that this dude is almost in a Groundhog-esque manner resetting time. And I think time goes forward, but because it's already happened, it happened again. We know he's already written a book. We know the house is burned down before. So time isn't starting over like Groundhog Day. Time is moving forward, and these new girls are brought to life. But with that concept being said, how...
why is it a different girl, though? We know that it is. I want to piece together the significance.
Because it can only go on so long until it hits the most extreme form, until death.
Say that again?
It can only go on until it hits the most extreme form of death. Because he is going to drive someone to complete insanity with this. I think he impregnates her for the use of sacrificing.
I think so too, and I think that that scene where that they haven't had sex, it brings about the point that she's never been alive before, basically.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's several references to quote unquote the apocalypse.
Definitely.
Where Jennifer Lawrence literally says, "I guess I'll just get ready for the apocalypse."
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's a couple references to that, but I don't. There isn't some apocalyptic,
I think this.
Do you think this is like the end of the world and he's starting it over again, or like what's happening?
I do think this has an end times vibe to it. I think just the horrific debauchery, the cult, the people all gathered around this, the executions. I do think it has an apocalyptic vibe to it.
For sure.
I think that. I think. What was your question again?
I was just gonna say, this isn't like the apocalypse though. You said this is time ongoing.
It is.
I guess it could be some sort. It would be post. It would be like some major event. Then it would never be the same again, though. In my mind, it's like I think it's the same thing every time because she wakes up in the bed the same way on that morning.
Yeah, and is he making the world forget about what happens every time?
Potentially. I mean,
is there a mystical presence around this house where no one else outside of this hemisphere can? It's almost its own reality.
The only thing that, like a microcosm, like the only thing that makes it seem like its own little universe is the scene where it shows the house being like reconstructed by placing the crystal on there, on the mantelpiece, and then like outward like 100 yards around the house. Is like beautiful grass, and then beyond that, it shows still a ring of like fire and that kind of thing. And you don't know if they just didn't give it enough time to reveal itself or if it's permanently like that.
So what exists then outside of this universe? How are these people brought in, and what is this place doing on its own almost island of the universe?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Guys, please also,
no
since as you see, we're getting a lot of answers, I think,
Yeah.
but we're still this is a mind-boggling movie, and I want to see comments. I would love to see reactions to this in different interpretations. Darren Aronofsky, the director and the writer, has actually released and said that I think he's completely screwing with people, that this movie is about Mother Nature and us destroying Earth. Don't buy it. I think the guy is completely screwing with audiences, just as he is with this movie. I think it's the most political, just bland statement you can make, and I don't buy it at all. I don't think that's what this movie's about.
I don't buy it either.
He's also said that, there were aspects of this movie that were a self-critique of me and my own artistic work. I don't know if I see that in it either.
I think aspects, not the entirety of the movie. I think aspects, I believe that.
I see that too.
Where I think the relationship between Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence is fascinating. I think that Jennifer Lawrence is totally underappreciated.
Oh, he doesn't love her at all.
And and I love it when she brings up, you love that I love you so much.
Yeah, and what's disturbing about him continuing to bring these girls to life is that they are just mantelpieces of them absolutely loving and reconstructing this place that's been burned down by the last girl, and he doesn't care at all. He is him and they are they, and he's not driven by love at all. He's driven by pure debaucherous greed throughout this entire film.
And I don't know. I'm trying to understand why Jennifer Lawrence knows so much. Where she says, "Oh, this house is burned."
He's told her that it burned down when I was writing my first book.
Yeah, but when did he tell her this?
Well, one thing this movie does as well,
he's controlling how much she knows.
He is controlling how much she knows, but one thing that happens in this movie is we don't see all the scenes in between the scenes, and I think we don't see everything that happens to this movie. Later in the movie, fast forwards through time quickly, very quickly. But in the beginning, it does seem like we're kind of getting a day-by-day interpretation, but do you think that could have just been between the scenes?
Man, it's tough to say.
It's tough.
I think it pretty much is day by day, and then at the end, they have that staring contest for 2 days. You see the sunlight change twice.
The cold is just silent. My goodness. Well, dude, I want to know overall. We got a lot to talk about this movie. I really am going to be fascinated to see what other people have to say. What are your impressions of this as a film?
I think that it is the only movie I've ever seen where I didn't know what was going on.
Really?
I fully was aware and took in everything that happened.
Everything that happened.
And have been somewhat incapable to rationalize a lot of the things that happen.
And is that a problem with the movie, or is this a benefit?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. So it's hard for me to use our scaling system because I can't really rate the storyline, plot, and development structure because I don't, and the dialogue. I don't know if the dialogue does enough to justify what the plot's about because
I think it does.
Because I haven't been sure of what the plot is about. I think that your
but I
theory,
think if the dialogue had
theory
too much
about the allegory is fascinating. I think that very well could be what it's about. I'm just not entirely sold on it.
I'm kind of on the verge of being sold by it. I'd like to hear someone else agree with me, and then maybe I'd start to feel better about it. But let me talk about one thing that I think is fascinating, and I do want to just compare this to a genre because I think it's one of the most fascinating things about the film. What do you think of horror films, and how do you think that this fits into the horror genre? Because this movie was marketed extremely well. I thought the trailer was very tense.
Yeah, the promotion hype category. I
thought it lived up.
9 out of 10.
I thought it lived up to the promotion hype.
Yeah, it was supposed to. The trailer gave away nothing, and it intrigued me a ton. And I think that they wanted it to be controversial. They did a great job of making it controversial. And
this movie's gonna go too far for a lot of people.
For sure.
Yeah,
the last quarter of the movie, most definitely. And I think that messes with a lot of people's heads where either a lot of people are really disturbed.
Yeah.
And then you've got a lot of people that I think are what is happening and can't really empathize with the characters because it's too far. You
Yeah.
know, it's just like,
And
I don't even understand what's going on, so I can't relate to these characters, therefore I care less.
And I think I had a very interesting perspective on this movie because had a lot of anxiety watching this movie. Just the way it was filmed, the way we see Lawrence taking this medication, the way the camera looms so close to her face the entire time. I got into her head. And I think that's what the director was going for. Someone who's kind of tense going into this movie. It's a tough movie to watch. It got me very rattled. And I think that this movie disturbed me. I think that it emotionally affected me. And I think even though it did those things, I'm still having to look down and be like, I think that's benefited the movie. Because I think this movie brought an intensity and tension. You know, we talked about Prisoners 2 weeks ago. This movie was 10 times more intense for me than Prisoners. My hands were shaking watching this movie. My teeth started chattering, and my hands started sweating. That's never happened to me during a movie before.
I was just on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
I've
never seen anything like it. I'll never forget watching this movie, and I think that it does something that the horror genre never does, and I think build that just dread the entire time. And like so many other horror movies, you know, you see clowns, you see jump scares. This is a horrifying and uncomfortable situation about evil. And I thought it was manifested in an extremely disturbing and very relentless way. Well, guys, let's talk about our rating for this film because it's kind of being adapted as we review.
Even though we still haven't really clarified anything, yeah, we'll go on with it.
I don't know. I think we've made
I think we've done a decent job. Let me think here. So let's go through. I think that the creativity of it deserves at least a 9 or 10. It's like
I give creativity a 9.
I did as well. It is its own thing. It's never been like anything else.
Very Polanski, Lynch, Kubrick inspired.
I don't think it's flawless in creativity. You know, I think they could have added things and could have shaken things up a little bit to make it a little more clear, a little less guessing, or maybe a little more guessing in different areas. And so I give it a 9. But
yeah, the place that I just have a giant question mark is plot, and the reason I have that is because I thought the development and structure of the movie was extremely gripping. This is a 2-act movie. This isn't a 3-act movie. It has a very sequential first half and then a second half, like Graham talked about, where things go off the deep end. But I still never felt like it went too far. It made sense to me when it was going crazy, and I felt like it was building towards that. Now, the storyline plot is kind of an ever-evolving aspect of this film for me because I don't know where to rate it. We still haven't completely clarified the plot of the film. I think we've got a lot of answers.
I've got 2 other major questions relating to it.
Okay.
Like, why does it turn into a cult originally? You know, like why?
He has this mysterious way of getting worshipers to follow him.
I understand that, but it is very mysterious, and that's why I'm asking the question. Why is that we don't really know why these worshipers keep coming and why they view this event as so significant that they need to steal things from the house as a memory.
Yeah, I think it's one of the major themes of the movie, just the driven pagan worship of this guy. This is
very materialistic. That's what I see. It's
really,
like he's encouraging people to value items and value these.
See, I didn't think so. I thought that we got sacrifices and executions. I thought this was just, they're so obsessed with him that they're stealing stuff, but I don't think it has anything to do with the materials.
Dude, I think it's classic tragedy of the commons.
Really?
Tragedy of the commons is, by definition is, something that is free will get abused until there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Okay? And so he wants to give away everything. I think he just loves fame so much that he's willing to share it with everyone.
Oh, I agree with
Everything
that.
that he has, he's like, take it all, even take my baby.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think people abuse it. I think that people love him for it, but people abuse it until nothing is left, until the whole house is gone, until his child is gone, until
his
everything
wife kills herself.
Yeah, until literally everything is gone.
Yeah.
I think it's more of I think what's making sense to me now is that it's almost a commentary on society that people take and take and take and take until there's nothing left, and they take advantage of situations like this where people are generous.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
but he was so
very, very
corrupt in himself, though. So I see your point on society, but I would lean a little bit on the opposing end just because he himself is such an evil person to let them. He is infatuated with them doing this. So I think,
it's hard for me to use the word evil.
Yeah.
When I think of Javier Bardem in this movie,
man,
dude, I think of everything around him is evil, but I think that he is almost like a nice guy. Like he's almost like he absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
But he is almost like he gets frustrated with them. He gets frustrated with the cult from time to time.
See, I thought
he's like, make some room. Y'all gotta get away from me. I gotta take care of my wife. That kind of thing. And
the only reason I thought he did that was to keep the audience in leverage of maybe he's actually not trying to go insane. The second she falls asleep, he runs and grabs the baby. I think it's meant to ease her into every situation, to not shock her, and to keep the audience kind of on the edge. I thought he was completely evil. But I see.
I think he has evil intentions, but I think that on surface level, he looks like a really nice guy.
Dude, I'm even going as far I think this guy is almost as bad as like the Joker, demanding sacrifices in his name.
See, dude, I think surface level, he does the same thing that a pagan god is supposed to do, like where he's supposed to bring people in by looking like so nice.
Yeah.
I take care of you.
Are you kind of on board with the pagan deity thing?
I'm understanding it more, not totally sold, but I'm understanding it more.
Okay.
So I think that the blood coming back into the rug, I still don't fully understand the significance of that. And in the baby room.
Yeah, it's her heart bleeding. It's like
her heart. So it's the decay of the house.
Decay of her manifesting in the house.
Gotcha.
And that made sense to me. She's going through this house. She goes to the basement. She goes to the cellar. She hears this heart beating. It's connected to her. This thing is on beat with her heart. One of the things too, the sound in this movie, just heartbeats.
Yeah.
We are hearing the house
throughout the entire
house's heartbeat. It had me so tingled up the entire time. Just the lack of music. That I gave sound on this an 8. I thought
gave it a 7. Yeah.
I thought closing song was great. I thought
closing song was huge. I think it is more significant than people realize. I think that's why I love sitting through the first song of the credits.
Yeah.
And even watching movies at our house, it's like I think that a lot of times that is the most important part of.
It's
that
huge.
Directors will basically be like, hey,
Yeah.
we need a significant song here.
Yeah.
And it's a song about the world is over because I've lost my love. And that's basically the lyric that stands out in my mind. And I think there's a lot of different directions you can take other than this pagan god idea, which is...
You can.
I think that's what's throwing...
Better not take Mother Earth, though.
Yeah. I think that's what's throwing everybody for a loop is that you could say, Jennifer Lawrence keeps asking the whole time, like, are you ever going to leave me? And he's like, I'll never leave you, kind of a thing. And then every time that she needs him, he's never there. She always looks, and then the camera pans, and then no one's there.
The dude leaves her with a murderer in the house.
Yeah.
Let's not get over that.
And is always leaving her alone, and he's kind of, dang it, man, I might support the pagan god idea that whenever you need him, he's not there because he's not actually a real god.
Good man.
Man. Anyway, so and so she's dependent on this and on this god that doesn't provide, basically.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's deceived and tricked into doing things for him.
Oh, this is a 100-0 relationship where you got the guy giving 0%, the girl giving 100%. Well, I think acting was phenomenal. Every single person just brought a disturbing element to this movie. Development and structure were solid for me, even though it's a 2-act movie. Plot is where I'm still a little bit hesitant right now. I'm going up, though, as we talk more about it. Empathy and emotion, I thought, was a 10. I was gripped. I was anxious.
See, I can't give it a 10.
Lawrence.
I think it was harder to empathize at the end. I mean, I felt for Jennifer Lawrence, and I could see how much emotion.
Because you're thinking of empathy with him.
I'm thinking of there were a couple moments where I think that he was like fake emotional.
Okay.
And I think that actually plays into the role really well.
Oh, I think he was fake emotional throughout the entire film.
Dang it, man. See, that bumps up my acting score in my mind because I was like, Javier Bardem could not sell those emotional moments, but if I think they're intentional.
Guys, I think that he played her the entire movie. I could tell, even watching this for the first time, I could tell he was playing her from almost the second scene. And I thought the way he almost played a dual role in this film, I thought his acting was even better than Lawrence. And I felt like it was one of her best performances. I don't know if I've seen him this good in a movie. And I thought it was one of the most different roles he's ever done.
Interesting.
Well, guys, we're gonna add up our scores. We're gonna kind of calculate it all up, and we're gonna give them to you. Let me see here. So I'm gonna put storyline plot as a. Don't tell me what you're doing.
Here, should we?
I think as an 8.5, and I'm gonna add up all my scores.
I really don't like the structure. I think it went way too fast at the end. I like the structure throughout until the end, so I'm gonna give that as 7.
I can agree with that.
And then empathy and emotion couldn't really connect at the end, 7. But I think it was great until then. And then dialogue, very interesting. A lot of vague comments.
And there's something else right before we wrap this up. What did you think about? Did this movie go too far? And do you think this movie is going to offend people? And do you think that's reasonable for people to be offended by a film like this?
I don't necessarily understand why people would be offended by it.
Okay.
I think that people could be disturbed by, a baby being eaten and it showing the
Pretty
baby's
disturbing.
Intestines and stuff. But,
Gosh.
And
too far.
And, Jennifer Lawrence getting brutally beaten.
Yeah.
And I can understand why that might freak you out, but I don't understand offense to this at all.
Yeah, and
I don't really understand that in any movie, but I don't understand especially this movie.
I understood. I think the movie had to go there. I think where it was drawing to. I don't see how anything else could have really played out, but I thought this movie went a little too far, and I just want to kind of warn people. I thought that it did not need some of the imagery at the end that was depicted. It did not need to show us everything.
Yeah, but do you take offense to it?
I don't like witnessing.
Personally.
It didn't offend me personally, but I would rather not witness something like that,
Okay.
with my eyes. But hey, maybe I get a little bit more emotionally involved in Graham, and I'll be interested to see how that plays out in our future reviews.
Yeah, and I think closure is a big thing that I really don't feel super strong about in this movie. I think that it ties up enough loose ends, but there are too many for me to say that this is closed well.
See, I thought with us realizing...
I think that the story now makes sense based on the way they closed it.
Yeah.
But there are just so many loose ends, like the thing in the toilet and the torn picture with the devil, drawn on it.
So a lot of little things.
I think there are things that were hinting at what you need in the storyline, but you don't understand, who drew that? Who put that there? Are these things literally just appearing? And
a little bit of trivia, too. Darren Aronofsky directed this, wrote this screenplay in 3 days for this film, and
yeah, you can tell.
Still got to give it to him, though. Doing a lot in 3 days. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to add up our scores. We're going to give them to y'all once we add them up, and this is awesome. This, I think, is one of our 3, one of the best reviews we've done so far, and we look forward to see how you guys comment on this.
Let's see how high your score is.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see the comments on this.
Yeah.
This movie's getting a ton of buzz, and that's something that we don't see from movies too much.
Yeah.
Lot to talk about.
There's one more thing.
Okay.
Significance of the title.
Yeah.
Why an exclamation point? Why mother? I think that goes with his. I mean, clearly she becomes a mother, and at the end, and it's tough to see why this is called Mother. I mean, it makes me think that maybe Jennifer Lawrence's role is supposed to be more significant than we're viewing it as.
Because she's kind of a mantelpiece.
Yeah.
But do you think
literally,
that
she's
could
on
be
the mantelpiece?
Do you think that director could be toying with us through the title itself? Kind of going into this movie, I think it gives it kind of a perception of where it's going, and you're like, she's going to become pregnant, she's going to be a mother. Where is this going? And I think it kind of throws us for a little bit of a turn. I think it kind of off kilters us when watching this film, going in with that Jennifer Lawrence perspective and then realizing how significant Javier Bardem is in this entire thing. I think it goes well with the movie.
Yeah, I think it's meant to pull your focus away.
And this movie, not only does it
why would you not call it Father?
Exactly, and the movie pulls your focus away even through the cinematography. You are watching, it's like you are Jennifer Lawrence in this movie. you are with her. This movie never goes to anyone else. If she's not in the room, the camera's not in the room. You're following her through the entire movie, and I think it's kind of to offset our attention. And I think that's one thing that the movie did really well.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks, guys.